Oh, hello. Welcome to another Tabletop Impulse video, which I didn't expect to make one today. Today is a hobby stream day, and I had to make this video. It was burning my brain. I had to get it down. Thank you, motorbike. I had to get it down. I had to get it out onto the page. I just had to get this video out of my brain. Games Workshop have... well, they've done something. They've done something. This Vantage Points FAQ. Let me get my laser pointer here. This Vantage Points FAQ. I skipped over this. I covered it in yesterday's video, right? And then I was really rushing to get the video out the door. And then it took ages to upload anyway, right? So it went up like about 4 hours after other videos went up about it. And YouTube hates me. But I should have gone more slowly and taken my time to properly assess what the actual F was going on with this change. So let's look at it. Let's look at it properly. Okay. So they've changed here these two bullet points. These are these two bullet points. So it used to say, with regards to a vantage point, the operative cannot use the floor of the vantage point as cover or to be obscured. The operative cannot use parts of the vantage point's terrain feature that is lower than the operative as cover or to be obscured. And they've removed the clause as cover from both of those bullet points. So logically now, they're saying that they can use the floor as cover and they can use parts of the terrain lower than it as cover. Right, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so that means that if you're on a vantage point and you're on a conceal, we'll go through it. We'll go through it. So, yesterday when I made the FAQ video, I've got my models out now and done it properly, which is what I should have done yesterday. Yesterday I did a quick sketch, right? And I said, so in a situation like this now, Alice, that's the novitiate up here on a conceal with a silent weapon, yeah? She can shoot Bob, but Bob can't shoot her. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Stop. If you're one of these people who writes a comment before the video's finished, just wait. Just wait. That's what I thought was the case. That's what I thought was the case. Right? And then we had this. So this was my comments section after that video. I don't think I've ever had a thread of 11 replies before. So Matthew, sorry for making you really famous, Matthew. Matthew Hoyle comes up and goes, Vantage doesn't have the cover rule. So it doesn't provide cover. What? So then I replied, I want you to imagine the monocle emoticon. So then I went away and did some thinking, which you're going to get the benefit of in this video, and I came to the conclusion, did they just break Minotaurium containers? Because now Minotaurium containers are much more defensible than Octarius ruins. If you already know why, you know why. If you're not sure, don't worry, we'll get there. And then Drew, 222K, came along and said, I feel Vantage was an overlay trait on areas. Did you, Drew? Did you feel that? Here's the definition of light. Light terrain provides cover, unless otherwise specified, e.g. vantage point. So now with vantage point giving a floor, cover again has its traits back. It doesn't even matter if you've got a heavy or light, as both the same only allow and cover. Okay, maybe Drew, maybe. Getting an aneurysm. Gonna put me in an early grave, lads. So I said, that's possible. That's the means of heated debate. Yes. No. Look at the picture on page 79 of the rulebook. We're going to have that picture in a minute. That's here. Yeah, don't worry. We'll get there. Vantages are different from light and heavy. Then look at the descriptions on page 72. Heavy and light provide cover. Vantage doesn't mention it one way or the other. I read this the same way TI did. That's me. Or basically the floor provides light cover. I think I was wrong, though, our cognitive surplus. I'm sorry. I think I was technically wrong. It doesn't make sense. Very little about this makes sense. But I think I was wrong. So it was a big, how long's the video going on? We're 4 minutes, and it was a big shitstorm. Okay? It was a big fucking shitstorm in the comments there. Let's have a proper look at this. So Bob wants to shoot Alice. The cover line comes through the floor here, but we look in the rulebook. The floor is defined as a vantage point. Yeah? The ramparts are defined as traversable and light. And the wall here is defined as heavy. And we assume the wall here is defined as heavy. Right? And I think Matthew is right. In this example, Bob can shoot Alice. Bob can shoot Alice still, so nothing has changed, so you can all rest easy. No, you cannot rest easy. But for a moment, in this particular scenario, you can rest easy. Nothing has changed. Which begs the question, sorry, let me just move that so I can beg the question more appropriately. If I just shrink myself down here a little bit, there we go. Which begs the question, okay, what's the purpose of this bullet point in the FAQ? The operative cannot use the floor of the vantage point to be obscured. They've removed the fact that they can't use it to claim cover. Implying, Games Workshop, that they can use it to claim cover. Which they couldn't do, according to the rules. Ever. Anyway. But now they can, but they can't, but they can. But you could choose to define the floor as light, you could do that. And people are going to say to me, but Tabletop Impulse, you have been trying to urge people to define the doors as the doors. This is the same thing. This is not the same thing. This is not the same thing, because doors was a new rule from later on that I was seeking to retroactively apply to a book that didn't yet acknowledge that doors existed. This is interpreting existing rules. Right, at this point in time, when Octarius was published, we had the rules of Vantage Point. It's a different argument. I think in this instance, we're right to say that the Vantage Point, this hasn't been granted light or heavy, so it doesn't provide cover. I think. But you're right to say, what was Games Workshop's intention with this bullet point? Now, I know that some of you have seen I've used the word intention on the slide, and they're already thinking, well, I don't care about rules as intended. I'm all about rules as written. Let me find that one article from White Dwarf in the 90s where it says, some don't like it raw. We've all seen it copied and pasted over and over again on forums. Look, if you want to come and have the debate about floor and whether or not you can or can't shoot through it, you can have that debate if that's the debate you want to have. That is not even what has got me so agitated. I'm prepared to accept that Bob can shoot Alice in this image. I think that's... It doesn't make any sense of why they've put this bullet point in, but rules as written, Bob can shoot Alice. Fine. What now? So she's standing at the little gap in the balance, and the cover line here is going to go through the heavy terrain. Right, this is heavy terrain. This isn't no floor. This is the heavy terrain. Look, it's defined here as heavy. Look, it's blue. Yeah, it's defined here as heavy. It's going through the heavy terrain. So the actual rampart here is irrelevant. The fact that she's standing on top of heavy terrain, and the cover line has to go through the heavy terrain, and she's on concealed because she's a silent sniper. Right? That's really all. That's really all that's important here. So the rampart is irrelevant, and if you stood near the rampart area, anywhere near it where the cover line will go over heavy terrain, and you're on a conceal, you can't be shot. So containers are now more defensible than all buildings. Because a container is a solid lump of heavy terrain with a tiny little sliver of vantage, right? But the cover line will always go through a piece of the heavy terrain. So no one on top of a container who's on conceal can ever be shot. If I'm wrong, please come and tell me that I'm wrong. But it doesn't make any sense to me as to why that piece of terrain should defend you more. You should be invulnerable to shooting in that scenario, and vulnerable to shooting in that scenario. Can anyone provide me with a narrative based, a kind of story based, a kind of Yes, I understand what the rules text says, and I will play it that way. But it's bonkers. What? How is Alice more hidden or more safe on top of the crate than she is on the ruin? I mean, maybe you can make the argument that the floor here has holes in, So she's like shootable through the holes? It's got like the little fan and the hole. Is that what we're talking about? And don't get me started on this thing. I'm pretty sure she's invulnerable on this thing. Big thick piece of heavy terrain with a little sliver of vantage point on top. And then it's got confined. So, like, even though I've brought Mr. Parfist Man and Mr. Scythe Man, they can't charge her. She can just stand there all day shooting at these until they're dead. She's invulnerable. Is that okay? You could throw a grenade, I guess. Yeah, okay. Well, you get your one grenade. Is that fine? And what really hurts my soul more than anything else is that this is grist to the mill of the people who only refuse to play on anything but Octarius. Because now, Octarius and Chalnath and Vertigus, you know, all the sets that have the L-shaped building with the thin floor of ruin forming a triangle between the two L shapes, those are moderately sane. Right? It doesn't make sense, but they're moderately sane because if we're deploying them as we have all as a community decided, right, where if you're going to have a vantage point and it's going to be somewhere that you can get, then you better make sure that the open side of the vantage point is facing out into the battlefield so things can be shot easily on the vantage points, and think very carefully before you give someone access to a vantage point with cover on top of it. And grist to the mill, because for those people who were always setting it up that way, not a lot has changed. Unless you want to start talking about the flipping ladder on the oil derrick, right? Because if you stand just above where the ladder is on the oil derrick, then the line would clip the ladder, and I should have put a picture on for the oil derrick as well, because it's maddening. Then that bit is a little bit marginally safer. But you can't. No one can be shot now anywhere on any of the Morok terrain because it's all big, thick, heavy terrain. And this rampart, it's totally irrelevant now. It's obviously not meant to be totally irrelevant because the narrative scenarios for this terrain set tell you in great detail which way around the rampart should be facing. The rampart now is totally irrelevant because this is all heavy terrain. So it doesn't matter which side of the building that you stood on, or where they are irrelevant to you, because the line will have to clip through the heavy terrain. So you're in cover. Anywhere on here, in cover. Anywhere on this landing pad, in cover. Nakman's got both kinds, so it's got the terrain where this platform probably doesn't provide you with any cover, because it's just got the vantage point rule, but this big circly thing will. Yeah, you're functionally going to be invulnerable on there, unless you get charged. Are we happy with that? Like, and the maddening thing is we might be happy with that. So there's like the homeostasis community within Kill Team where whenever a massive shake-up comes, and they're already at work, going, how can we best ignore this change? How can we best ignore the change completely? Let me lay out one strategy as to why maybe it's a change that we need to embrace. Perhaps, right? So these are really old models from Games Workshop. These are Katachan snipers, I think, in white metal. And they've got a guy that's prone. And I've just shown them as an example because maybe being on conceal is supposed to mean that you're going prone. If you imagine this guy going prone, if you imagine him on top of the container with his silent weapon, he's going to be quite hard to spot. And you've got to remember, the weapon is silent. The conceit is that the enemy team don't know where they're being shot from. They can't shoot you because they don't know where you are. Now, there's a bit of cognitive dissonance that happens there because you, as the player, you can see the opponent's model because they're standing up doing this. They're not lying prone, they're waving their weapon in the air to be really legible. And you're not seeing, in your mind's eye, the character going prone and being all sneaky like. You're seeing this, and it looks ridiculous to say, oh, you can't see her, but she's standing there with her crossbow in the air and a big gold stick with a skull on it. But maybe she's supposed to be like lying down really flat on her face, just poking a crossbow out in front of her like this, with the veil kind of drawn over and down, covering over the shiny metal bit, and the silent crossbow bolts just kind of going into the enemy. Like, I get it. That's what being on a conceal order is meant to be, right? It's making yourself as small and concealed as possible. And maybe they're trying to reflect that idea that when you're flat down and prone on top of a piece of terrain like that, you're almost impossible to see if there's nothing giving away your position. This just makes snipers better. Yeah. So who's got access to snipers? Vanguard have a sniper. Commandos have a sniper. Sisters have a sniper. Does Tau have a sniper? I should know that. Pathfinders may or may not have a sniper. Corsairs have a sniper. Legionaries don't. Phobos don't, but Bloody do. And then for the White Dwarf teams, what? Genestealer Cult have a sniper. Mechanicum don't. Warp Coven don't. Harlequins don't, but Harlequins don't need it, right? But the point is, what? A little under half have got one of these things. And they want to make them. The thing is, I went up north a couple of weeks ago now and played against a different group up there. And literally the meta up there, we had the guy playing Phobos, the guy playing Warp Coven, Mrs. T.I. come up with us and she had Legionaries, and there was a guy playing Mechanicum. And I was like, and they were like, what do you mean that she can shoot? She's on conceal. I'm like, she's a sniper, And they looked around like I had 5 heads. Like, what? Are you sniper? And I had to sort of explain, well, this is an archetype that features across half a dozen other teams. It just happens that none of the teams that you regularly play against have one. And they found that obnoxious. On top of the faith points being obnoxious, or anything else being obnoxious, does a thing that's already seen as being somewhat obnoxious need a buff? Even if I can justify the narrative of the buff? I don't know. Maybe, this is my only other thought, maybe it's because they want people to take the Kernite Hunter or the Phobos Vox Breaker or all these models, like the Kernite Hunter, the one that I've put on here, look, who has the bird, and the bird flies along, and it allows you to flip things with a conceal and treat them as if they had an engage. So the Kernite Hunter would be able to set her onto an engage and then she gets shot, right, if these were Eldar instead of Death Guard. Yeah, the Vox Breaker, the Phobos Vox Breaker, has the Ore Specs that does the same damn thing, right? Can get people on a conceal and get them treated as if they're on an engage. And those models, both of those models, if you listen to me or anyone else that described the faction, I've even heard people say about the Kernite Hunter, maybe you don't want to take the Kernite Hunter because the bird is so pointless. Maybe you want to take just a regular shuriken rifle, because buying off the range limitation on your shuriken pistol is worth giving up the entire bird. I've heard people make that argument. And people are always quick to drop the Vox Breaker as well, because, he needs to get in really close. But maybe Games Workshop wants you to make use of the counterplay, because that is now the only counterplay to those kinds of things. A silent weapon, concealed sniper character on a vantage point. Maybe they want you using those things. Maybe they just want everybody to get really irritated with vantage points and play into the dark, where there doesn't appear to be any vantage points, at least until the second box for Into the Dark comes out, which inevitably is called, Ascend the Dark and adds vantage points, but, tinfoil hat. What I really wish more than anything else is that I didn't have to guess Games Workshop's kind of intent, that they made a neat little article that went with their FAQ and said, we made this change and we want it and we expect it to work like this, blah 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 blah, and then at least we could see where they were coming from. But they won't do that, because the conceit is that this is FAQ and it's not actually changing anything. It's just letting us know, this is how you should always have been playing the game. Really, Games Workshop, this is how we should always have been playing the game. Like, that's your story and you're sticking to it. This isn't a change. This is just something that people were misinterpreting because you wrote the word cover in you shouldn't have done. Is that... Look, I'm sorry. I've come off as ranty and shouty, and I don't... It's just vexatious. It is. It's vexatious. So we kind of got two prongs to this, right? We got the floors thing. On buildings like Octarius, Chalnath, and the Vertigus, the 40k terrain, where you've got them thin floors, is it intended that those floors on those buildings provide cover if you're being shot from the open side, right? Rules as written, I don't think they do. Rules as intended, maybe they should, because otherwise what is that first bullet point for? There's nothing to stop you and your friends agreeing that the floors can have light or heavy or whatever other trait that you have, because remember, the terrain data sheets are not really hard and fast rules. You're supposed to agree all the terrain traits with your opponent before the game. So what this means then is if you play on Octarius or Chalnath, you can ignore all this drama if you really want to. Just make sure that you place all of your... well, it doesn't make any... Really, it doesn't... Apart from the tiny situation here with the gap in the thing, right? Be aware of that. But by and large, it doesn't change much. Unless you think the floors are meant to provide cover, in which case it changes everything. But oh, if you were using containers, or if you want to use your Nachmund or your Morok terrain, you need to be aware of this stuff. Now, there's already people saying, we're just going to tell Games Workshop, we're not changing. We're going to reject... There's a lot of people on the internet saying, we're going to reject this idea out of hand. I like playing in Warhammer World tournaments, so I don't really care what the independent tournament community decides to reject out of hand. I keep thinking I should go. I should go down to London and I should play in an independent tournament, and I keep kind of bottling out. And if the independent tournament community starts to diverge, and believe me, once they diverge on one thing, once they ignore one FAQ, they will, well, now we're playing a different game, so now we diverge on these other 10 things. And that is disastrous. Because then you really do balkanise the community. You can forget anything about, oh, well, half of us are going to play Into the Dark, and half of us are going to play with Season 1 stuff. Forget that. Like, oh, we're going to ignore the FAQ in London. Oh, well, we're playing in a gaming store in the Midlands, and we don't know what this ignoring the FAQ stuff is all about. And what? And then there's the guys in America and the guys in Spain, and are they all going to do the same thing? Right now, I think the main reason I'm making this video is not to advance a particular opinion, other than, I guess, we need to play some games. I'm playing some games with Zimbad on Monday. I have to chat with him about how he now feels that we should try and run the terrain for our games, but I think we should see what it's like with this rule. I feel like the community's kind of... Maybe, I don't want to blame the community and say the community's caused the problem, because that's not really what I think, but to an extent, the community deciding, this is how we're going to set the terrain up, we're going to play on Octarius, if we have vantage points, we're going to turn all the vantage points so the open ends are facing into the table, we're going to make sure that, a sniper type character can basically never gain cover while on a vantage point. There's a very strong message in the community of people that decided that, and it really could be this is Games Workshop going, no, we want snipers to be that powerful because we want you to pick these counter sniper things. And then you cry because you play Thousand Suns and don't have a sniper or a counter sniper thing, but hey, you don't have to take your injury damage on your psychic powers anymore, so that's something for you. I don't know, guys. I would really love your feedback on this video. I don't know what I think yet. What I hope I've done is I've come to educate rather than to persuade. I've come to kind of set out what the problem is, and I've come to set out the various different situations and the rules. I don't even think there is a rules ambiguity. Thank you, Mr. Motorbike. I don't really think there is a rules ambiguity. A slight one about the floors. I actually think rules as written is pretty clear. The floors don't provide cover. Rules intended. But there's a... Hopefully I've explained the problem. And having explained the problem, hopefully you can pass this video on to your friends and go, well, this guy explains the problem now. What are we going to do about it? And when you've come up with what you're going to do about it, leave me a comment. If you've liked this video, you found it useful, if you've only just come across my channel because somebody shared this video to you because they wanted the problem explaining, please do give me a subscribe and a like and a thumbs up and all that stuff. Alright, hope you enjoy the rest of your day, guys. I will be streaming later, and if you want to chat about this to me on the stream, I'll have beer, so it'll be okay. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. Alright, thanks folks. Bye-bye. Cheery bye.